He was the last appointment of the day, by KB Hurst. The summer rain brought out the smell of the old building of the job center I worked in. Crusted plaster adorned the walls with cracks on cracks, running up to a leaky ceiling above, like veins on a body, dying to find its last breath. It was a typical underfunded facility. It had limited resources and no new amenities. It had a resource room for people that needed to use free computers, fax machines, and copiers with resume paper. But the computers were old. Sometimes the internet barely worked, and the entire building had a funny smell, like mildew. Flies buzzed about, landing in odd places or just dying on the floor next to the front door. There was a sign above the security desk that read, "Come in, we're awesome." Today, the secretary had already left for the day, as the county office only paid for a half day on Fridays. The only person still at the front desk was the security guard, Mac. Not many people came to the center when the weekend was about to take off. The two double doors only opened by a key card, opened and shut, making their squeaky, screeching sound as they opened to let Miss Hanson out. "Thank you, Lauren. I mean it," said the older woman. "Oh, no problem, Miss Hanson. You'll do great on the interview. Just act confident." I politely buzzed her through the two large doors to the front of the lobby, and then went and sat at my desk. I looked down at the folder with only a name and a weird date of birth. I had only a couple of hours left. My day had begun like any other. I awoke to the alarm of my phone, chiming loudly next to my bedstand. I had to fight the urge to throw my phone across the room as I reluctantly got up, stretched, and went to get ready for my long day at work. It wasn't a particularly exciting day, and I only had 1 or 2 appointments. I work in a county building as kind of a life coach to help people that don't have jobs get them. They tend to have a lot of barriers, like writing resumes, learning how to dress, and present themselves to potential employers. Most of them can be a little uneducated also, and in those cases, training is needed to make them more employable. That morning, I had just got out of the shower when my phone went off. It was Cheryl, one of my coworkers. "Hey, Lauren, sorry, but I'm in bed sick with a cold. Any way you can take my 3 o'clock appointment today?" I sighed. I texted back, "Sure, no problem," and continued getting ready for work. I know I didn't have to take her appointment. I even had plans to leave early at the end of the day. I just figured, how long could it take? New customers had to be assessed, and that usually only took maybe 20-30 minutes. I could have had the customer in and out, and I could still be out of the office by 4 o'clock that day, just in time to drive into the city in the traffic rush and meet Dave, my boyfriend, for our anniversary dinner. He had reservations at some pricey joint for 5:30, and then we would be off to a Broadway show that I had been begging him to take me to for the last year. When I got to work, I found the info on Cheryl's desk calendar for the appointment I would be taking. There was a stack of folders on her desk, and the folder for the customer I would be seeing was on top. I opened the folder, and I thought it was strange there was no information inside the name, just the name of the customer. Raymond Johansson, date of birth, 1/1/51. Normally, it would contain some sort of additional information, such as the reason he was scheduled, or even who referred him and why they referred him. In this file, there was nothing. I grabbed a donut from the bakery on my way into work. I bit into it, and it instantly got a nasty taste in my mouth. Something was off about it, and it went into the wastebasket under my desk. I sipped my coffee, preparing for my day. The day seemed to drag on. Most of the staff left early on Fridays to get a jump on the weekend. Our office, being in a more rural area, was further from the city. On most Fridays, it usually consisted of Cheryl, my coworker, the security guard Mac, and the county building manager and his secretary Brenda. There was the usual run-of-the-mill county workers that filtered in and out. Today there wasn't any foot traffic. I had seen maybe 3 customers come in to use the computer, but by 2 p.m. the resource room had been closed and locked by Brenda. Only people coming here now would be pre-scheduled appointments. That day it was basically Mac and myself. There was a baseball game everyone had tickets to as well, so that meant the whole office was gone. I don't know if you've ever been in a large building alone, but it is a very empty feeling. The day went on, and I had 1 cancellation, so that left me with my morning appointment and nothing until Raymond Johansson. Sometime after lunch, I noticed from my window seat it got very dark outside. I could see storm clouds in the distance. It grew very quiet. Something felt off, and I shivered thinking about it. I went to tell Mac I would have a late customer to just let me know when he arrived. I had to wake Mac as he was sound asleep at the front desk. He apologized and wrote the information down. Around 2:45 p.m., I happened to see the wind had picked up considerably. The parking lot was empty except for a few cars. I was typing an email, not really paying too much attention to the outside, when out of the corner of my eye, I noticed a man. I looked up and saw a man in an old brown tweed jacket. He wore brown dress pants that looked dirty. He looked thin and had short gray hair slicked over to one side. I only thought it was weird because by now it had begun pouring rain. Why would anybody just stand there like that? I went back to my email, and I once again stopped because I noticed the man walking toward the building, very slowly, creepily. I looked up and stopped because I noticed that he was staring so intently. I didn't think it was too weird at first. I mean, I worked with the public. I had seen some of the craziest shit in the years I'd been there. He kept staring at me, and then I saw him run towards the window where I was. I sat in shock as he came nearer and nearer, and then he slapped the window in front of me and I jumped out of my seat. I could see he was mouthing something. It seemed like he was saying, "Let me in. Let me in." I moved away from the window, and he ran to the 2 double doors at the entrance of the building. My heart was racing, but I tried to remain calm. Just then I heard my phone ring. Shit. I picked it up quickly, slightly annoyed. "Hello? Lauren, your 3 o'clock is here." My hands began to sweat. I knew then and there that this man was the same man from the parking lot. Hey, Mac, are you going to be here for a bit?" I asked worriedly. "Oh, yeah, I'll be here till 5 today. Why, is everything okay?" I don't know why I didn't tell him about the man and his behavior. I was afraid maybe I'd sound crazy. Maybe it was nothing. He probably just wanted to get in out of the rain. I told Mac yes, and I hung up the phone. I sat down for a second, readying myself for the encounter. He probably just was someone with PTSD, like a veteran or something. I know people could be weird and all, but I told myself everything would be fine. I put a few things together in a blue folder, such as a mental health, evaluation, information, food bank locations, and some other resources I thought might help this guy. I went out to the large keycard door to the lobby. I saw the man with the brown tweed jacket on. I called for him by name. "Mr. Johansson?" He seemed docile as he looked up at me, smiling politely. "Hello. Nice to meet you," he said, holding out a dirty hand. I reluctantly shook his hand, introducing myself, and made a mental note I would be washing it as soon as he left. I led him back to my desk, and he sat down in front of me. "So, Mr. Johansson, what are you looking to accomplish at our meeting today? Do you have a resume? Perhaps I could look over it." I asked, trying to smile. He immediately pulled out a folded-up piece of paper and unfolded it in front of me. I instantly took pity on him, and then seconds later regretted it. He picked it up and insisted that it was a resume, but it wasn't. It was a list. And the first thing on the list was duct tape. Mr. Johansson, that appears to be a shopping list, not a resume. I gulped. Yes, yes, sorry. I need to be careful sometimes. Here you go. He said, taking out a paper from underneath the list. He held it up to me, and I couldn't help but notice the touch of blood, or what looked like blood, smeared in one of the corners of the paper. This, too, was not a resume, but instead a blank resume template. I thought, how odd, and how was I going to handle myself now? He was clearly a little mentally ill. There was just something not right about his behavior. I was glad at least Mac was on the other side of the keycard door. I looked at Mr. Raymond Johansson and tried to smile. Well, we can help you with a resume. Do you know what kind of work you want to do? I kept thinking, maybe if I tried to stay calm and ask normal questions, he'd try to answer them. I want to find work in engineering. Finally, a friggin' breakthrough. Excellent. What kind of engineering have you done? I'm sure I can help you write a really good resume. And also, maybe with a little medication and direction, he would be on his way to a better life, I told myself. And I genuinely did want to try to help him, but I also couldn't wait for him to leave. I'm afraid of the world. Like, I'm really afraid of it. He whispered to me and then looked out of the window. His demeanor changed again within a split second. He leaned on his elbow, chin, and hand, looking up at me with a dreamy smile on his face. Have you ever been someone's muse? I need a new muse. I was genuinely unsure how to answer the question. I'm sorry, what? He then started to nod his head up and down and looking from side to side. He began to shake his head faster and faster, and his eyes looked like a man that was possessed. He looked up at the ceiling and then stopped, looking me directly in the eye, very seriously. Do you have a bathroom? He asked, grabbing himself as he stood. He suddenly seemed nervous about something. I nodded, unsure as to what to say. Yes, by the front desk. No! He yelled, pointing toward the hallway behind me. He said I needed to go to the back. You have one in the back. I nodded. Okay. I was afraid he would have a freak out, so I pointed in the direction of the employee restrooms in the back. I saw him walk around the corner, down the hall to where the employee restrooms were. I looked at the papers again in front of me. The list that he had sent chills down my spine. Number 1, duct tape. Number 2, bleach. Number 3, plastic. Number 4, knives. I believed I may have been looking at some sort of list a killer might need. The blood on the paper really freaked me out now, and I went through the keycard door to tell Mac that we had a real nut on our hands. When I went to the front desk, Mac was nowhere to be found. This was not happening. Damn it, Mac. Where was he? Deep down, I knew I should have called off today. It was far too late for those decisions now, wasn't it? I wish with everything inside of me that this day would just fucking end. I waited for a good 15 minutes or more to see if Mac would come back, but he never did. I was beginning to feel frustrated, because now Mr. Raymond Johansson was also not back. It had been some time. Where were they? I reluctantly went back through the keycard doors, and I went straight to my desk to look for my cell phone to call the cops if I needed to. Suddenly, as I stepped over the threshold, the power in the entire building went out, and the storm outside seemed to have knocked out the power line, which meant the keycard door would not open anymore either. I quickly went to my desk to find my phone. As I reached down to pull out my purse in the bottom drawer of my desk, I felt it. Someone was breathing heavily behind me. I stood up slowly, and I felt a tap on my shoulder. I slowly turned around. Mr. Johansson stood, grinning at me, holding a bloody knife, and was now wearing Mac's security hat and jacket. It was the most bizarre sight. It's so hard to find the words to explain what my shock was. I found my muse. Isn't it beautiful? Such a pretty color red, he said, grinning so happily as I stood watching in horror. I screamed louder than I believe I ever had in my life, and I was sure I was going to die. Then, like a distant echo above me, I heard a loud and very familiar sound. It was my phone alarm. Jesus. I sat straight up in bed in a sweat. It had only been a dream. It felt so real. I breathed in and out heavily, gasping for air onto my chest, expecting to feel a stab wound. I looked down at my phone. There was a text from Cheryl. Hey, Lauren. Sorry, but I'm in bed sick with a cold. Any way you can take my 3 o'clock appointment today? I thought about it for a second. Was this some sort of fucking deja vu? I knew with everything in me there was no way I was going into the office today. Not after that nightmare. The thought of that lonely office after that dream, it just gave me the creeps in a way I cannot describe. The thought of the man with the blood all over him and the possessed look in his eyes, I will never forget that dream. It still haunts me to this day, you know. I quickly texted her back and told her I would be taking today off as well. No problem, I'll just go in late for half day, was the reply, and that was that. I had a lovely weekend with Dave and got to see Book of Mormon on Broadway, which was pretty funny, I have to say. When Monday rolled around, I drove into work as usual, and I was shocked to see cop cars surrounding the front of the building and yellow tape in front of the 2 lobby doors. I bolted out of my car and quickly ran up to one of the officers. What happened here? Is everyone okay? Sorry, ma'am, I can't say anything. Do you work here? I showed the officer my work badge, and he directed me to a detective who had to ask me some questions. I learned that Cheryl had been stabbed to death. Mac was sleeping at his desk when he got taken from behind. Poor Mac. Poor stupid Mac. I felt sick to my stomach and wished I had some sort of way that I could have prevented it. Poor Cheryl. I couldn't get that dream out of my head that day. The man who had done it was an escaped mental patient that had stolen some clothes from a local Goodwill, that tweed jacket, and it was caught on camera. They found his prints on everything and arrested him. To think of what could have been will haunt me for the rest of my life. The authorities have no idea how he escaped the mental facility because it was highly secured. I still keep tabs on the guy, who remains locked up in a secure mental facility. I no longer work at the same place because I quit that same day. The thing that still bothers me is that Cheryl died in the same manner that I was about to in my dream. She was trying to get something out of her desk drawer and he stabbed her in the chest. This happened about 5 years ago now, and I try not to think about the events. I'm married to Dave, we have a son together, yet something happened the other day. Just out of the blue, I went to get my mail, and inside was a pink envelope with a card inside and no return address. I opened the card, which wasn't anything special. It just said, "Thinking of you," with some yellow roses. It had one thing inside, though, that sent me into hysterics. And I don't really know who else to tell about this. It was a bloody piece of paper with a list on it, just like in my dream. Number 1, duct tape. Number 2, bleach. Number 3, plastic. Number 4, knives.